Did you ever wonder how to make a sword out of a shoehorn? Hey guys, my name's Nadja and today I'm showing you how to make an effective weapon for under 30 euros. So, yesterday I found this shoehorn at our local supermarket and I thought, well, let's try and make a weapon out of it. Since I never did a project of these dimensions before, I'm going to start easy. I'm going to start with unpacking. In order to get a pointy end, I made a paper template. I put it on the sword with some tape. Then I transferred it onto the blade and cut it out with the saw. So, after having found a better saw, I could trim this, and I think it looks pretty nice. I also sanded down the sharp edges, and now I'll try to sharpen this until this marking there. I will cut this also a bit. So this machine seems to be doing the job, and since I need eye protection and ear protection, I think the camera should be protected as well. And I'm going to put it into another room, so I will see you when I'm finished grinding the edges of our sword. After grinding the edges of the blade, I took it to this sandpaper block or whatever it is, and I tried to sand down the imperfections on the blade and to make sure I wouldn't hurt myself while working with the sword. I measured out the wideness of the end of the blade to know how much I had to cut into the metal where I wanted to put the cross guard. Look, first edge is finished. I did it with just putting the tape where I had to grind away, and so the other side. Yeah, after grinding this and cleaning up a bit of the mess I made, I am rather pleased of my first try of making a sword out of a shoehorn. Yeah. And yeah, I think I'm going to go to the hardware store tomorrow and buy a metal tube to make the handle. I am going to make the crossguard like Suba from the Japanese katana making. I'm going to get a few different metals and try what I can make of. So after the visit at the hardware store, I realized it is rather awkward carrying a piece of sheet metal while riding a bike. So I will let's never do that again. While tidying up the bench, I found this. It's a lid from my pocket watch. My father had to take it apart because the opening mechanism didn't work. So I'm using this for the Suba as well as those two metals. And I also bought this epoxy glue, and it's fucking expensive. So let's start. I started by measuring out the diameter of the pocket watch and I traced it to one of the sheet metals. After cutting the sheet metal with my mini bolt cutter, I traced the circle onto a piece of wood to cut it out with a saw. I also made a template for the inside of the pocket watch slit
and after cutting it out it was a loose fit. So I also went ahead and traced the inside of the pocket watch onto the sheet of wavy metal and cut it out as well. After cutting out all the pieces, I also did a quick assembly and everything looked fine.
Okay, so I decided to paint both the metal and the wood with this black color. And first I'm going to color the wood, then I'm going to glue everything together with the epoxy glue, and then I'm going to color this metal black.
So in the pocket watch lid there was a gap left, so I filled it with hot glue and afterwards glued the pocket watch lid and the wooden circle together. After measuring out the hilt which had to go through the tsuba, I marked and drilled a couple of holes to make this lid.
So yeah, I'm actually finished with it, while drilling the holes and filing it off. Actually those two pieces broke away, so I have to re-glue them, but that's not that bad because this fits here. Wait a sec. Yeah. This way. It's, no. So this way, yes. And I think it looks okay.
In order to get a little spacer between the tsuba and the blade, I measured out the perimeter of the blade, I traced it down onto the sheet metal, I cut it out and finally I glued it with epoxy glue to the blade. When I removed the sword from the clamp, I realized the glue had hardened really nice and it looked okay. There were a few glue stains on the sheet metal, but after roughing it up it looked really good. From an early stage of this project I knew I was going to make the pommel out of sheet metal, so I drew a template on some paper and taped it onto the sheet metal. I cut it out with a pair of scissors, I colored the area which I had to drill out with permanent marker, and I had to bend the sheet metal where I did the markings on the piece of paper. One of the hardest parts of making this sword was building the handle. I started by measuring 17 centimeters of a copper pipe and sawing it off. Afterwards I took it to the bench-wise to get an oval shape. I also cut a piece of sheet metal so it would fit halfway around the copper pipe and the sword hilts. After I had both the copper pipe and the piece of sheet metal in place, I took two strips of sheet metal and secured them in both ends with a bent nail. Attaching the sheet metal of the pommel to the sword was actually really messy, so I had a few gaps left between the hilts of the sword and the pommel, which I had to fill with some metal from my scrap pile, and I also had to add a few spacers on the inside of the pommel to prevent it from sliding. But nevertheless, the Shoehorn Sword is completed.
So yeah, this was me making a sword out of a shoehorn. So I really think it has a nice balance because it's not too heavy, the blade. So at the beginning when I had the end of the shoehorn, it was really heavy there, and I think I did a good job putting the metal here in the end, and well, of course I'm going to replace it soon. Yeah, so I'm actually rather pleased how it turned out. I mean, it was my first project of this kind, so I'm really pleased how this turns out. It looks nice, well, except for pommel, but the hilt, it looks okay. I mean, there are those plastic things from the stickers, but I can live with it. So
So in general I'm really pleased how it turned out, as I said before. So I think it was nice to really have this idea of doing something, and I had a bit of concept. So I knew I was going to cut this, I knew I was going to grind this away, I knew I was going to somehow sharpen it a bit. And I think it was really good having a bit of concept but not too much. And maybe I should get a bit more concept for the next project. So I really had much luck that everything turned out in the way I wanted it. Maybe not perfectly, but okay. What I also really think was nice, it was cool to really reuse something old which didn't work in its old function, so I could reuse the lid of my pocket watch. I think it's a really good feeling to really be able to reuse something, to know that you could have thrown it away, but that you could use it into another project, and I think this is great. So yeah, I did a sword. So what would you do out of a shoehorn, or out of what would you do a sword? So maybe I'm going to make a dagger out of a normal sized shoehorn, who knows? What other ideas do you have? And maybe you did already something like this, and maybe you've got a picture of it. So maybe you want to send it to my email, and if you have got already a video, put a link into the comments, and so I can watch it. Maybe I'm doing a video with your submissions, so because I really want to know what you can do. And whatever you do, have fun.